Welcome to the PodoTron Network.
You know, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, your race, religion, whatever. Chances are that the legacy of HBCUs and their graduates affect more than one aspect of your everyday life. HBCUbiquity.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to the new HBCUbiquity podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Joyner Jr. Question, and this is especially for those of us with school-age children. With all the changes that have happened in education this year, what's new or different about the college application process? Stuff is different now. I mean, virtual versus in-person classes. Some schools have creative hybrid models, some days in school and some days online. Synchronous versus asynchronous learning. But as college goes, no college fairs this year except for the virtual ones. No campus visits. No recruitment receptions hosted by alumni. So what's there to know about applying to college and or applying for financial aid for next school year? To talk about that, I'll be joined by two administrators from Hampton University, Ms. Angela Boyd, Director of Admissions, and Mr. Martin Miles, Director of Financial Aid. Why Hampton, you ask? Well, in my experience, Hampton's admission requirements are on par with most any HBCU or non-HBCU. In other words, please don't think that today's conversation only applies to Hampton. And with that said, let's get started. And let's get this discussion going. Welcome to the new HBCUbiquity podcast. Yeah. Welcome back to the new HBCUbiquity podcast. So for today's high school seniors, man, they have had an eventful and unpredictable 2020. However, it's still that time of the year to start the enrollment process for college. So how does that work in the COVID-19 era? To discuss that, especially if you or your child or someone close to you desires to go to Hampton, #word to Harvey, I'm joined now by Hampton University's Directors of Admission and Financial Aid, Ms. Angela Boyd and Mr. Martin Miles. Sister Boyd and Brother Miles, good afternoon. How is everything today?
I am well, and thank you for having us today.
I, too, would like to second that. Thank you for the opportunity to assist you in any way that we can.
Oh, no. Thank you all. Because I attended HBCU in the mid-'90s, and I remember both admissions and financial aid being lots and lots and lots of paper. So I see that you all are in your offices today because I was wondering, how does that process work remotely for both of you all?
Well, you're right. It is very difficult to have a remote application review process to that, and hence the reason why we are in the office and have been since the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And while we can do some things remotely, the university administration felt it was in our best interest to physically be here and to continue the day-to-day operations of working with the enrollment and recruitment process. And so we're here and we're processing and we're making decisions and trying to get ready for fall 2021.
So speaking of fall 2021, what checklist is needed and when should they plan to have their applications submitted?
Well, first and foremost, students who are thinking about going on to college hopefully have started the process already. I mean, the review process or the preparation for college begins with a strong academic preparation at the high school level. So the emphasis and focus should be on the classes that they're actually taking in high school. Those core courses in English, math, science, social studies, any type of electives that are strong in preparation for college level, for a college level curriculum would be what students should be focusing on at this particular time. And I know that while there were many challenges last year with remote teaching, with online learning, colleges and universities are certainly going to take that into consideration when the review process starts. But students have to remember that we're not looking at 1 year. We're looking at the comprehensive high school years, 9th through 12th grade. And so we won't allow one particular semester to impact significantly the decisions that we're making. And to answer the second part of your question, once students begin to apply, of course, you want to adhere to the deadlines of the colleges and institutions that you're interested in. Most of them will have some type of fall application deadline, whether it's early decision, which is a process that requires students to commit to a university if they are accepted They apply early and receive a decision early and must make that commitment within a specified time frame. That's early decision. Some colleges may have an early action deadline, which also is a time that they apply early on, receive a decision fairly early. The difference between early action and early decision is that there is no commitment to attend. Students will have an opportunity to shop around a little bit if they want to do that. So the key thing is preparing in the fall with the application process so that in the spring, you're making decisions about where you want to enroll. You don't want to wait and put it off until the spring because it makes it that much more complicated for you. There are so many other factors that come into play beyond getting admitted.
And if I heard you correctly, despite what, seems to be the media trend or the news trend these days, you're looking for more than just STEM activity. You want to see others, at least electives, classes, more of an expansion of your high school career, or your personality.
Absolutely. A broad-based curriculum is very important. Most colleges and universities are looking at the rigor of programs that a student has pursued. So basically, whatever is offered at that school, students should try to pursue the strongest rigor that is available. For example, if there are AP classes or honors classes or IB classes, students should have attempted some of those courses in order to receive favorable or strong consideration from a lot of institutions across the school. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to determine is whether or not a student can be successful in our collegiate environment. And success for us is determined by what has been completed or accomplished at the high school level.
Mm-hmm. So will there be any difference in consideration given to students that are virtual this fall versus those that are attending school in person? Or will you even be asking for that information?
No, we will not be asking for that information. We will ask, of course, for the transcript, the high school transcript. And the information that is on the transcript, we should be able to glean whether or not there were some differences or breaks in the academic attendance and how that was done. But that won't have an impact on the decision-making process at all.
Are there any notable changes or adjustments that have been put in place this year regarding academic criteria for admissions for 2021?
Not so much for academic criteria, but as you may be aware that there are many challenges right now with being able to take the SAT or the ACT because of test administration centers across the country are canceling the test because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so students are not able to take the exams. And in many instances, I know that more than, my research has shown me more than 1,000 colleges have made the decision to require the SAT or the ACT as part of the academic review process. So students should be mindful of that and aware that some schools are not requiring it this year. Some schools are continuing with their current policies. For example, Hampton has a test optional policy that allows students to decide whether or not they want to submit tests. Now, and understand that sometimes there are caveats with test optional policies, meaning you must have a certain grade point average and complete a certain core curriculum in order to qualify for that option. But there are so many different opportunities and options out there right now. For some students, I'm sure they're kind of glad or maybe happy that this year that SAT or ACT may not be a requirement, but at the same time, then they have to recognize that there may be some other factors that will come into play in evaluating them for admission.
And Brother Miles, regarding SAT and ACT, how does that affect the awarding of scholarships or financial aid this year?
Well, it does not have an impact on financial aid in that regard because the ACT and SAT and high school transcripts, AP courses, all that is evaluated by the Office of Admission. And they make the decision in terms of whether or not a student qualifies in whole or in part for any merit-based scholarship. So as far as financial aid goes, that would not have an impact in terms of what we do because we receive that information from the Office of Admission.
So with that said, in all things considered these days, Is admissions or financial aid accepting physical or applications or transcripts, or should everything be submitted online this year?
Well, I can just say this, Thomas, I've been financial aid director here at Hampton for about 14 years, going on 15 years.
Congratulations.
And we have been automated with the financial aid delivery process since that time. So it's very little, I can think of hardly anything where it requires a person to physically walk into my office and to drop off information. The FAFSA and any other financial aid related forms, all that can be done online and sent to us electronically. So we don't really, students are always welcome. We love to see them. We love to have them. We learn a lot from them, but they're not, the information that they need to complete can all be done online and can be submitted to us, accordingly.
But if you are, say, submitting it via mail, is Hampton accepting mail applications and transcripts, all things considered these days? Well,
as I said, I've been around for a long time. I have yet to see a paper FAFSA in my 25 years in financial aid, both here at Hampton and also at a public institution. So again, it's done almost universally, almost 100% online in terms of completing the FAFSA. So, which is that is the key ingredient for applying for federal student aid, and in some cases, state aid. And we also use that form too to help us determine whether or not a student qualifies for any institutional aid beyond the point of admission, especially as relates to other scholarships that we have, other scholarship programs, endowment opportunities, and so on. And even in some cases, if a student is being considered for an external scholarship opportunity from a private foundation or organization or something like that, oftentimes those entities like to know whether or not the student has any financial need and things of that nature. So again, to answer your question about physical forms and things like that, there's very little of that whatsoever. They can hand walk it in, but they don't have to do that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I want to come back to the FAFSA stuff, but regarding admissions, will you all be, is that also all automated, or will you be accepting mail-in applications or essays for that matter?
Along with what Mr. Miles has said, the application itself is electronic. We accept two types. We have our own web-based application, as well as we accept we're members of the Common Application Program. So we accept that application, and those are electronically sent. However, we will accept transcripts and credentials through the mail. That's not a problem for us at all. We are still able to receive our mail on a daily basis and able to sort that information and add it to a student's file. So if a student is not able to send something to us electronically, we certainly accept it via U.S. mail. And also, a lot of students are able to upload their transcripts and send them in to an email address that we provide as well, letters of recommendation, their essays, things of that nature. The point I think is important to make is that if you are sending credentials that way, that you send them together, that you not piecemeal it.
Yeah.
You don't send a letter of recommendation one day and 5 days later send the transcript, and 5 days after that, then the test scores and things of that nature. Try to send everything in one envelope together so that that increases the chances for us to process in a timely manner. If we're waiting on credentials because they're not there, then that takes longer for the student to get a decision back regarding their application.
But I'm sure in your experience, how with, especially with transcripts, sometimes students don't have control over when a school releases that, and that's during normal times. But you touched upon something that I want to just hit right quick. You say everything is online now. So does Hampton no longer send those nice physical with the calligraphy admissions acceptance certificates? Because I got one when I was applying back in.
Right. Oh, absolutely. We would not change that tradition for anything. Now, the question was about what we receive. We will receive paper credentials, but when we respond to the application, we do it two ways. we send out an electronic notification because, our students like to get information quick, fast, and in a hurry, and they want it on their cell phone so they can share it with family members. So we do send out an electronic notification. But we also send a nice, beautiful certificate that's worthy of framing, and announcing their acceptance to the university.
Actually, I still have mine.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Brother Miles, going back to what you're talking about with the FAFSA.
Yeah.
So what are the upcoming deadlines to be mindful of, and what basic checklist would you advise students to prepare before they start that process?
Yes, that's a great question, Tom. The biggest deadline in all of America as it relates to the FAFSA will be in about 10 days, which is the October 1st date, which is the earliest date that a student and their families can complete the FAFSA form. So they can start the 21-22, I think I got that year right, beginning October 1st. And so that's the big one there. As far as a checklist goes, for a point of reference, I would give and would recommend to every family out there to go to the College Board website, and they have an excellent financial aid checklist for students at the freshman level in high school, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. All the things that they should be cognizant of as it relates to applying to college, paying for college, and things of that nature as a point of reference. Now, I like to promote, obviously, Hampton University as much as I can do.
That's right.
I would welcome anyone to visit my website, because my website, and I would welcome you to visit as well when you're free time, because it consists of so much information to help families to navigate the financial aid delivery process. We have links that pertains to general information. We have links that pertains to financial aid key policies and so forth, because there's a lot of financial aid policy stuff, as you sort of alluded to, in your introduction. We have information about student news, the latest updates coming out of DC, coming out of, or either on the state level. We also have information about eligibility for federal student aid programs, all of them in detail, not just, not just mentioning of the name, also how to apply for aid. We even have information out there for international students as well, in terms of scholarships, and things like that, and other opportunities. We have in-depth information on loans. We have FAQs on that. We have FAQs for parents. We have FAQs on grants. We have links that help students to apply for external scholarship opportunities. We do the homework here. We vet them and so forth, and they're in alphabetical order in terms of major. So it's not like you have to, like with some websites, you just go and you just put in your name and you do a scholarship search. We actually break it down per school, per academic major, provide the deadline dates, and things of that nature. So again, reading is fundamental. I'm full of a lot of old sayings, and one of my favorite one is, a person who's able and refuses to read is worse off than a person who's unable and cannot read. The information is there, but you have to take at least 30 minutes, maybe an hour on average. And all university websites, as relates to financial aid or mission and so forth, they will vary in terms of content, in terms of information, no doubt about it. But I would match and would compare Hampton, my website, to any other school's web, HBCU or non-HBCU, in terms of content, in terms of information, and things like that. And I would welcome you. What
is that website address?
Check it out yourself.
What is that website address?
Oh, just you go to www.hamptonu.edu.
This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and you're listening to the new HBCUbiquity.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure that it's plugged. And with that said, are there any other notable changes to the criteria or amounts of the grants and scholarships and other types of, support that's currently in place right now?
Well, as it relates to grants and so forth, as you may know, on a federal level, all that's determined by Congress and U.S. Department of Education and that sort of thing. And so to answer your question very specifically, the Pell Grant program, the maximum is about $63.95, I believe, if my math is correct. The loans, as it relates to loans, those loan amounts have remained the same for about the last 20 years in terms of what a freshman student can borrow, a sophomore student, junior student, and a senior. And also if they're independent freshmen, sophomore, junior, and seniors. So those are all regulated by the Congress and not by the Financial Aid Office. One thing I would like to add here quickly is that some states like Virginia, for Virginia domiciled residents, we have our own, what we call tuition assistance grant, and there is a deadline to apply for that. Beginning each January 1st through July 31st is that time frame. You only have to apply for it once. You don't have to apply for it each and every year, but you have to be in good academic standing. You have to be admitted, obviously, and those kind of, basic, type things. So I would implore your listeners to also check, with their respective states to see if some of those grants in those respective states can be transferred to like a private institution and so on and so forth. There's a lot of, over the years, there used to be a lot more. There's a few that still do that, but for the most part, it kind of stays within the state as opposed to across state line in terms of state grant funding I'm speaking about. I'm not talking about 529s. I'm not talking about college savings plans and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, for both of you, we're talking about, traditional high school seniors. But for either of you, does your advice or information change when we're talking about non-traditional students? And those are students that are over the age of 30 that want to go to, say, Hampton online. Is there anything different with their processing?
Well, I'll let the Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management, Ms. Elizabeth, speaks to that.
Thank you, Mr. Miles.
Yeah.
For non-traditional age students, the application process is pretty much the same. If you have been out of college for more than 5 years, out of high school, for more than 5 years, then the SAT and ACT is not a requirement. If students are wanting to go through our online program, we have a whole different department or a whole different unit, if you will, for online education at Hampton. And so that process is less cumbersome, I would say, to a person who has been out of high school for a number of years because fewer credentials are required. And the process is a little bit more seamless in that regard. So I would encourage persons who are looking to have an online experience that are in the non-traditional population to visit the websites of the colleges that they're interested in, because I'm sure that information is explained in detail.
Okay. For both of you, do either of you all things considered, these days anticipate any delays in your notification process for either admissions or financial aid for either early or traditional applicants?
Let me say a little bit about the application review process and how it works here. As I mentioned earlier, there are several types of deadlines that students may want to adhere to with early action and early decision. Those notifications will probably remain the same and remain unchanged because students who opt to apply using those type programs will have submitted their credentials by the desired time frame. And so the universities and colleges have a responsibility to meet those notification dates that they have set forth. So whether it's you apply by November 1st and we notify you by December 31st or January 15th or whatever that date is, they will more than likely be able to meet those notification deadlines with no challenges this year. The only challenge that I think may be out there is mail delivery. There is some talk that some of the mail has been delayed. So if colleges are mailing out information, they may have some challenges in that regard. Now, with respect to traditional deadlines, I think that those students who are opting to try to get a test date or test time in, will probably see some delays in their notification process because a college can't make a decision until they have all the information.
Right.
So once all of that information is received, they will make it in the best timely manner. But, my advice is always to tell students that understand the requirements of the institutions that you are most interested in. Visit their websites, call their offices. Many are working on campus and are in their offices during normal or traditional business hours. And so you can make the phone calls and ask the questions. But as Mr. Miles pointed out, most of this information is updated and current on websites, and it's there for students and parents to go out and read and get that specific information. If they just spent just a little bit of time reading, I think they would have less anxiety. And I want to talk a little bit about that as well, if you'll allow me, in terms of the what kinds of things people should be doing to prepare or what they can expect as they go through this process. And, over the years, the college application review process has become so competitive. There are a lot of selective institutions, of course, that are out there, but people are absolutely panicking about getting into the college or university of their choice. And I always say that the preparation for college actually begins in kindergarten.
Yes.
So if you are doing the things that you are supposed to do all along the way, you are not going to have a problem gaining admission to the college or university of your choice. I tell people all the time, there are more than 4,000 colleges and universities in this country. You will get into one of them and you don't have to apply to all 4,000. Relax, take a deep breath, and remember, if you have done the things that you were supposed to do, which is go to school, get good grades, take the appropriate courses, be involved and engaged, stay out of trouble. We don't like discipline issues. Stay out of trouble and apply in a timely manner. You will more than likely get into the college or university of your choice. Have some realistic goals about those schools that you've identified, because we all know that if you've taken, and I get in trouble for saying this all the time, but get in trouble if you've been taking band, basket, weaving, and chorus, and you've got a 3.5 grade point average and you're excited about that, that's a problem. You're more than likely not going to gain admission into the college of your choice because you don't have the academic preparation to be successful at the collegiate level, or you haven't demonstrated that. And so if you are, I can't say it enough, if you as a student are doing the things that you are supposed to do, you will be fine. Stop worrying, stop having all this anxiety about getting into the college of your choice. Write those essays and write them well. Do not send us, and I hate to go off on a tangent here, but this is my pet peeve. Do not send colleges and universities junk. You are representing yourself. And so we are looking for the best self that you can present. Send us 4 and 5 sentence essays. That's not an essay. That's not answering the questions that we're asking you. You're not telling us about you. We don't know enough about you to make the best decisions. And so present yourself in the way that you want to be represented. And I'm quite sure that you will not have a problem getting admitted into the college of your choice.
And Thomas, if I can jump in there, because the operational term there was delay, as I understood it to be a short while ago. And let me tell you what I think are the two biggest things that really delay the processing of student financial aid. One is that the families sometimes start it, but they don't complete the FAFSA correctly. And the federal government sends them what we call a student aid report, which outlines what issues must be resolved on the student and parent end before that application is considered to be complete and valid for the financial aid offices or my office to process. And oftentimes there is a serious delay with some, especially first generation students and families who may be doing this for the very first time, obviously. So that too, can delay. Also, what can delay is that in financial aid, the information is sent directly to the student, especially once comes from the Department of Education and processed, let's say, by the Financial Aid Office. We send information to the student because it's in the student's name. And oftentimes, the student may not share with mom or dad, oh, you need to do this and that. Although they should know, because on the student aid report, it tells them what specific items that the Financial Aid Office needs in order to complete processing, which then leads to awarding of them for financial aid. And I just want to come back to something just for a point of clarification. There are some documents that we do require that some parents can encrypt those documents and send it to us, via the internet, via email and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Some do, but most do not. Most do send their tax information, if they're selected for a process called income verification, to the Financial Aid Office by priority mail and things like that. We scan everything that comes in. So as Dean Boyd alluded to, and I can personally attest to it, the mail delivery is a little slow out there. And so that's why we encourage people, don't wait a day before the deadline. Know well in advance what the deadlines are so that there won't be any delays as it relates to process getting admitted and your financial aid, being processed. We have what we call a priority filing date here at Hampton, which is February 15th for our federal financial aid recipients and really need-based recipients. And basically what we mean by that is if you apply, let's say between October 1st and February 1st, you would be considered for additional funding, need-based funding, federal funding I'm speaking about, if issued, with your FAFSA form. So again, you need to, sometimes, we're our own worst problem or challenge sometimes because we react too late and we don't always respond as timely or quickly to questions or to emails that my office may send out or Dean Boyd's office may send out, and so on and so forth. So that too can delay the process. And with the COVID and everything out there now, generally in October through January, nationally, it's called Financial Aid Awareness Month. And so local schools, high schools, and some even I've seen them at middle schools, they invite people like my office or local financial aid offices to come out and do financial aid workshops to sort of acclimate parents, on the financial aid delivery process. So I don't know how that's going to shape up without a vaccine and all that, but that too is hurtful. Also, as Dean Boyd may have mentioned, typically we love to see students come to the campus. I know they can't do it now, but that too helps a lot of parents and students to learn about certain majors, learn about the admissions process, learn about what we do here. And so not having those things at our disposal, I feel that, it's going to be a little bit of a loss to some. But if you read the information that I started out with, what Dean Boyd is saying, or Assistant Vice President Boyd is saying, and what I am saying, a lot of it is there for you to see. And even on my website, I have a contact us. We prefer people to email us. That way we can track your inbound, your outbound, and we can develop a history, a log, and that kind of thing. So we can answer a lot of your questions, but a lot of your questions can be found on at least on my website, because we have FAQs on just about everything.
Thank you both for your time and all this great information. In closing, for both of you, was there anything that we missed, or you have any parting or closing words of advice for high school seniors?
If I could offer this, and that is during this pandemic, as Mr. Miles just said, while it's challenging to visit colleges and universities today, there still are virtual opportunities. And I want to put a plug in. We're hosting our very first virtual fall open house on October 17th. And so I would invite students and parents to tune in. Yep. It will be a Zoom presentation. There will be live presentations as well as some video recordings. But we're going to showcase our university in the best possible light that we can, answer questions, address issues or questions that people might have about the admissions process, about the university in general. So it'll be a wonderful opportunity. We'll have students that will be engaging in this, currently enrolled students that will be engaging in this process as well. So look for those virtual opportunities to visit a campus as well. Many schools have virtual campus tours that they are placing on their websites right now. And so there's still a way for you to kind of get an up close and personal look at the university without actually being physically on the campus. And as I said, remain calm, remain cool in this process. Do not have a lot of anxiety, because you will get into the college or university of your choice if you do the right things. Stick to deadlines, adhere to deadlines, and make sure that you're being responsive when being asked for information.
And on behalf of all of us with high school students as children, thank you for that. We will try to remain calm, including myself. Brother Miles, do you have anything to close out with?
No, I'd like to second everything that Ms. Boyd has mentioned. But I would encourage all of those listening out there, not just entering freshman students, but continuing students, even those undergraduate level. You can do your FAFSA beginning October 1st. I cannot stress that enough. And just read the websites, follow the timelines, and don't be afraid, to send us an email and to answer whatever questions that you may have. Even if you're going through some difficult times or have faced some difficult times with COVID, there is a provision under the law to where we can review those set of circumstances, and we could, it's called special circumstances, professional judgment, and that sort of thing for people, may have lost a job or a loved one or something like that due to COVID or due to anything. But that can be proven, that can be substantiated. So you don't know these things unless you reach out to people like me or my staff, and because we can help you with that. So the first thing that I say to parents is to, don't be afraid to raise your hand. And in this case, don't be afraid to send an email. Don't be afraid to call us if that's what you need to do, because we can help you. We will help you if we can. We want to make college happen to students. Oftentimes I hear from parents, I made too much money. Well, not even if you made as much money as Bill Gates, you would still qualify for not need-based aid, but it would be, you could be considered for other types of scholarship opportunities, as I alluded to early on in this podcast. So, don't always apply. Oh, you don't have to accept the aid. You don't have to accept the loans and stuff like that if that's what your package presents itself. But you just want to be in the hunt for any other opportunity that may, arise or could come about, during the academic year.
Well, again, thank you both for all of this information and for your time. And Godspeed, best of success to both of you and all of the decisions and processes that you'll be working through over the next several months. And again, just thanks a lot. And with that said, stick around. We'll be back with more of the new HBCUbiquity podcast. Welcome back to the new HBCUbiquity podcast. Special thanks to Angela Boyd and Martin Miles. In this one instance, I think I can speak for them in that they'll be okay if you take today's information to apply to a different school other than Hampton. But know that, especially if you or someone you know fits their criteria, you should really consider a home by the sea. Word to Harvey. Word to Lex Bolden. Word to my wife, Toy, and all of Quintessence 2. But seriously, did we miss anything in today's conversation that you still have questions about? Like they said, please don't wait or hesitate to contact them or go to Hampton's website, hamptonu.edu. hamptonu.edu. Also, whether it's Hampton or somewhere else, you can always hit them up on Twitter and Instagram. And in 2020, all colleges and universities are active on those platforms. Thanks again for listening, and please check back on next week for another HBCU conversation. I'm Thomas Joyner Jr., and you've been listening to the new HBCUbiquity podcast.
Sign up and be a part of the team. Be a PodoTron at PodoTron.com. Thank you for listening to PodoTron.